Hey everyone, welcome. Ready to dive deep into Cuban education? We're dissecting your whole pile of research here, articles, studies, even some firsthand stories. It's obvious you're aiming to grasp how things are right now, especially with this whole social equality angle, yeah?
Well, you've come to the right place.
It's a fascinating area, that's for sure. Full of contradictions, really makes you think. I'm eager to get into it all with you, see what we find.
Me too. Right off the bat, what's caught my eye is this Cuba's promise of free education for everyone,
Yeah.
every level. It's right there in their constitution. That's commitment.
No kidding. Since '59, they've really gone all in on this universal social policy idea. Healthcare, jobs, you name it, they aim for equal access. Ambitious doesn't even cover it. But, and here's where it gets interesting for Emmy at least, your research shows how bumpy that road to equality actually is.
Oh, tell me about it. Best laid plans, right? Get this, that Desarrollo social.txt study, they found like 6% of teens, despite all this free education, are struggling. And the reason? Stuff totally outside their control, poverty, family problems. And that 6%, don't be fooled, that's thousands of kids slipping through the cracks, which is what's so jarring, honestly. Shows how even well-meaning policies, if they miss those deeper socioeconomic realities, it's not enough.
Makes you wonder what's behind those struggles, huh?
Exactly. And that's where Zabala Arguella's work is so insightful. 2023 article, I think it was, they tie these individual stories into the bigger trends. See, Cuba might aim for this beautiful inclusion, but inequalities persist. Gender, race, where you live, but especially your economic background, it all still impacts lives, education included.
It's easy to get lost in the numbers, you know. But those Desarrollo social.txt case studies, those really got to me. Imagine being a teenager trying to learn, but you're dealing with like super cramped housing, maybe even going hungry. They found kids showing up to school hungry, even with the lunch program.
It's tough to hear about, for sure. It makes it so much harder to focus on anything else when you're dealing with that. And the burden it puts on teachers. Both the Desarrollo social.txt study and that CESPI's Tamayo one, 2024, I think, they both say the same thing. Teachers need more support, more training. It's not enough to just care. They need the tools to help these kids facing such huge obstacles.
Right. It's like you wouldn't send someone out in a blizzard with just a light jacket, right? They need way more than that to handle those conditions.
Exactly. And it's bigger than just the schools, too. All the research keeps coming back to this. Family and community, that's essential. Even the best program in the world can flop if it doesn't line up with what families are actually going through. Like, if parents can barely keep food on the table, some workshop at school is the last thing on their minds, you know?
Absolutely. It highlights how interconnected everything is. It's a complex system. Can't just address one thread and expect the whole thing to magically fix itself, huh? But, there's some good news in here, too. Zabala Arguelles talks about these projects. Transforma para educar. Escalando la esperanza. They're working directly with communities, trying to build solutions from the ground up.
And that's what's key, I think. Sustainable change, real change, it has to come from within. Those community-led initiatives, those are exciting. Shows a real shift, finally recognizing how important that local context is. Collaboration is key.
100%. Top-down solutions aren't enough. You got to listen to the people living these realities every day, right?
Yeah.
Their voices, their experiences, that needs to be driving the change. But there's another piece of this puzzle we can't ignore, can we? Right? We've been digging into these deep-rooted issues, and then, bam, pandemic hits.
Global curveball, right?
Yeah,
And suddenly every education system on the planet scrambling, trying to figure out this whole remote learning thing. Cespedes Tamayo, Zabala Arguelles, they both go into how Cuba handled that. Talk about a massive undertaking, huh? Like flipping a switch, the focus went from equal access to a classroom to equal access to the internet, computers, all while supporting kids in this whole new world of virtual learning. And of course, it just made those existing inequalities in Cuba even more obvious, didn't it?
For sure. That Ritos y Oportunidades article really opened my eyes to that digital divide. And it wasn't just having a computer. It was about reliable internet, a quiet place to study, stuff a lot of students just didn't have. Not to mention the pressure on families. Like they weren't stretched thin already, right? Now they're expected to be tech support on top of everything else.
Right. It really drives home that access to education, it's so much more than just bricks and mortar and books. It's resources. It's support systems, this whole web of things that have to be working.
Totally. But here's what I found interesting thing. Puigmeneses, he makes this point. Just throwing technology at the problem, that's not enough. You need good teaching, engaging methods, things that connect with kids no matter where they're learning.
Couldn't agree more. That human element, That's what matters ultimately, yeah. Best tech in the world can't replace a good teacher. And it can't fix those deeper problems, social and economic, that affect a kid's ability to learn.
So, where does this leave us? We've uncovered some real challenges here, but also there's this inspiring resilience in Cuba. That tercer profesionamiento thing that Zabala Argolis mentioned, super cool. They're trying to make the curriculum more relevant, help kids actually right in the 21st century.
Love to hear it. Shows they're actively trying to evolve their approach,
Yeah.
which is essential. But like anything complex, it's got to be an ongoing process, right? Research, adaptation, especially with how fast things are changing in Cuba and globally.
I gotta say, what's stuck with Emmy through this whole thing is how dedicated everyone is. Educators, policymakers, communities, they're all really striving to make sure every student has a shot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the power of collaboration, right? When you've got good research like these studies we've discussed, combined with proactive policies and communities driving solutions on the ground, that's where real change comes from.
100%. It's not enough to just point out the problems, you gotta equip people to fix them. So, as we wrap this up, feels like Cuban education, it's at this crossroads. Balancing those long-held ideals with the reality on the ground makes you think, huh. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Cuban education. It's been quite the deep dive.